we've talked about last week, when the inverted yield curve, the longest ever, every single time since 1950, it has predicted a recession without fail, 100%. Or Claudia Sam's rule, she talks about a 3-month rolling average of unemployment. And if it rises 50 basis points from its low point, you're in a recession. Well, it's up 53 basis points. It's predicted a recession 9 times in a row with 100% accuracy. Are we in a recession? Is that what they're worried about? Could it be something far worse? Could it be something that comes out of BRICS? Are they going to try and do something to stop that BRICS meeting from happening, to stop the election from happening? God forbid. But I want you to think about something. I was listening to a podcast the other day with RFK Jr. He's like, the Ukraine and Russia have a 2,200-mile border. NATO is talking about putting these Aegis missiles on the border, which can carry a nuclear warhead and would beat a Moscow in 3 minutes. If it were on the Mexican border, would we stand for this in 1 second? And so you can understand that you wonder, to what lengths will they go to keep Trump out of office? Does it mean even doing something to cancel the election? And that's not so far-fetched. That actually is what's happening right now in the Ukraine, where Zelensky has suspended, the elections under the guise of martial law because they're in the midst of a war. God forbid that's the lengths to what we would see here. But like I said, man, these are going to be the craziest now 8 weeks maybe of our lives. I really do believe that. I can't wait to ride shotgun with you, and hopefully it's not too crazy so we can talk about it and still enjoy life, right?
This came out two days ago. Silver's 44-year cup and handle, the largest bullish formation ever seen. 44 years in the making.
Yeah, and gold is similar to that, but that's a big one. And for those people, who don't know, I'm sure many do, but a cup and handle formation is one of the most bullish technical formations. And it shows, in this case, a tremendous base that was formed. When you have a cup and handle formation that is that long, I think it probably would accentuate the outcome that much more. Anything that is done over time creates a much bigger pattern for sure. And if it's a small sample size like today, where silver outpaced gold 5-1 percentage wise, well, that isn't the same thing as if it were 47 years worth of data that showed that. So that's a very bullish sign, 100%. 100% a bullish sign. And it's the same thing where if you look since 2022, the ETFs, including silver, and the price, gold mostly, have diverged, where there was an outflow of gold and the uptick in the price of metal. So now you put into the equation a massive bullish formation, pivoting on interest rates, the Indians and the Chinese buying at levels no one's ever seen before, buying unrefined concentrate in doré. And for people who don't know what doré is, it's a half-assed attempt by a refine or a miner to refine a bar, probably down to 40 or 50%. And then they send it to the refiner who then refines it to 999 pure. It's, in other words, they don't take the time to refine all the impurities out the miner doesn't, but just enough to put it in a bar form to ship it. Anyway, so you got China buying look at the bullish indications that we're seeing everywhere. People should understand that. And yet, and the craziest thing about all of this, Jay, I honestly mean this to you, I've been doing this since I was 19, man. And if you would have told me in 1989, when I started this company, that gold would be at almost $2,700 and you wouldn't hear squat about it on the evening news or anywhere for that matter. And silver right now, again, we're pretty damn close to as high as it's been in the last decade. You don't hear a word about it anywhere. Right. From a public standpoint, they wouldn't know gold and silver coins if it fell on their collective feet.
Right.
So again, contrarian indicators, bullish indicators everywhere you look, leading into the biggest election of our lifetimes in a BRICS meeting in a very, very unstable time. If you don't get this right now, people, I mean, what you waiting for? I don't know that you ever will. No salesmanship here at all. This is just straight up. I mean, look around you, and if you are comfortable with the status quo, you're a lot braver than I am.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to back when I was talking about this October and November. The BRICS meeting in October, on October 2nd, but we also have the U.S. pushing that mandate on October 1st of 4.5%. Yeah, 4.5% held tier one assets like gold, which is 0% right now. So they already are trying to combat it, it seems like. So we already
think about how crazy that is, man. It's they're mandating that you hold 4.5% of your liabilities. I
Yeah.
mean, so that means 95.5% everything else is out there. It's crazy. I mean, it's not like it's that big of a deal yet. That just goes to show how over leveraged the system is and undercapitalized. So if 5% of the people come in and say, give me my money, it creates a problem. How about 10%? How about 20%? Big problem. Now they have to sell all of those assets that they have, which are typically treasuries or things like it, in order to come up with that money. And heaven forbid, interest rates move the other way. And again, that's probably why they're giving in and lowering rates and
Yeah.
pivoting. But they're
Yeah.
65% away from their target of
Yeah.
2%. And yet, okay, inflation's under control. My asset is, it hasn't even begun.
Right.
And it will only get higher as a result of these actions.
And this is the craziest thing is we're already seeing silver right below the breakout of last time it was above 32.50 is when it shot to $50 in 2011, or $49, whatever.
And it
Right before
happened
that,
fast.
right,
From
right,
from that point, from 32 to 50, I
right.
couldn't believe how fast it happened. It was
We're right
really
there.
fast. Yeah.
We're right there, and we still have the biggest months coming that would do that, that would push it above that, and some. Plus, on top of that, silver lags behind gold. It always does, but when it catches up, it's always more. It's gold
In a
on
44-year
steroids.
cup and handle formation.
And a 44-year. It's a more exaggerated version of gold. If
And
gold's going to go
positive
up 5,
inflows now for the first time in 2 years into the
right?
ETFs.
Like
And China and India buying it off the hook and buying up unrefined silver. I mean, you couldn't paint a
you
picture of
can't.
a better asset, period, or a better investment to own. If you were trying to teach a class on investment 101, where you try and show value, we call it asymmetrical risk reward. Okay. The best asymmetrical risk reward I've ever seen. And that would be the lowest downside with the best upside. And
You know
that's
what's
asymmetrical risk reward, where, yeah, you can buy it at 30 bucks. What's your downside? What's your upside? And I would say to you that if it had been allowed to be traded freely, because remember, 8 commercial banks from the West hold the largest concentrated short position in any commodity ever traded in the history of the COMEX in silver, right? We talked about the why. John Little does an amazing job of telling us about the military-industrial complex and the why. That's why they're holding the price down, because they're fighting wars and they being the military-industrial complex, needs cheap silver in order to make weapons. I get it. They're not reporting it, so most people don't get it and think
right?
30, wow, it's extended at 32. My ass it is. It hasn't really been able to. It's like keeping a person in a cage, from the time they're a little kid until they're full grown adult. And it's like by the time the person's full grown adult and the cage is bursting at the seams. Well,
Yeah.
that's kind of what this is like.
Yep.
Silver's been kept in a cage for a long time, and it's bursting at the seams as the world accumulates it, like
Yeah.
Russia, like China, like India, and India buying over 800 million ounces in the last few years. And their numbers are going through the roof. In fact, I just read something. Let me just see. I'm sure you've already probably talked about it. I know you have. But Reuters just reported silver's imports in the first half of 2024 jumped to 4,554 tons from 560 tons a year ago, which was
Yep.
a record year. So in other words, it's up 7 times from the 2023 levels. What the hell are people not seeing in
Yeah.
this? And Reuters is reporting that, and yet it doesn't go past that.
Right.
And if you're not digging to find that stuff in the creepy bottom, corner of
Right.
Reuters with the other conspiracy stories, not front and center on the front page of everywhere and everything, you'll miss that, as
Yeah.
will most people,
It will
and
be it will be there after it's already
of
exploded
course.
when it's too late,
And
right?
we told you, see, it was in Reuters.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's
Right.
right.
And the craziest thing is we talked about the 44-year cup and handle, XYZ, this, that, and we still haven't even talked about the massive deficit of 770 million ounce deficit in the last 2-3 years alone, right? The massive amount of silver needed in this new digital, industrial era we're growing into. That too, like you cannot make up a more perfect scenario for something. And like you said, the person busting out of the cage, I refer to them like volcanoes. volcanoes. Like there's a gold volcano, silver volcano. Gold's volcano did erupt, right? It broke past all-time highs, still is. Silver's volcano still hasn't erupted, and the more time, more magma builds up. When it does, it's going to explode.
Yeah,
And
100%, 100%. Um, and you got, uh, as much as I hate to say it, you got many of the Fed, the Fed governors, the one from Chicago, last name Goolsbee, talking about that there will be many more rate cuts on their way down to, they want it to get down to around 3% on the federal funds rate, which is, you're talking four more rate cuts of 50 basis points plus. You're talking gold and silver rocket fuel. And it just is the realization. And what's interesting too, man, is that when they lowered rates on the by dropping the federal funds rate, the back end of the curve went higher. In other words, the yield, the bond market fell and the yield went higher, because who wants to hold our long-term duration debt when we're just obviously giving up on fighting inflation and continuing to spend and destroy the value of the dollar? So it had the opposite effect. But what it is doing is uninverting the yield curve, where they're pushing down the front end and the back end is selling off, and the rates are going higher because no one wants to hold our debt of any duration because of the risks to inflation and to war and to all of the other things that are kind of floating around out there. These are very strange times, man. It truly is. And it's not about making money. It's not about that. It's about return of your money rather than return on it right now. And I don't think it's even begun to accentuate itself in terms of what's going to happen. That'll happen here over the next couple of weeks as we head into the election. There's just going to be some things that I think will just automatically start to get strange.
5 reasons why silver is the investment opportunity of the decade. Going over some good points too. Number one, leading indicator is wildly bullish. A lot of what we were mentioning, physical shortage, silver price chart
There's that cup and
dynamics.
handle right
Yep,
there.
the
See
cup and
it?
handle, short positions well below historic extremes, and then the fuel as well. And this is a quote from Warren Buffett: "The stock market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient."
Yeah,
I like
that's
that.
funny. That's funny he said that, because it's funny, man, because I remember playing poker with a guy once, and he said, I thought he was so profound, and now I realize he was full of shit. He said playing poker is a systematic transfer of wealth from the impatient to patient. Well, I guess you could apply it that way too, but I didn't realize he stole it from Warren. Well, that's interesting to know.
It's
Yeah,
funny.
man, but that is what's happening, and everyone who's in the stock market is very impatient, and they want immediate gains, not the long, suffering, torturous journey through the desert that you and I have been on for forever. And but this is, and I look at gold, and to me, when I say gold, I mean silver too. They have a 90% correlation through all of time. They move together, not always in symmetry. But let's just focus on gold for a moment and realize silver will exhibit a very similar pattern once the
Hmm.
dust settles. And that is that, for the past 25 years, gold has outperformed everything. And it's doubled the 10-year treasury. It's outpaced the S&P 500 with dividends reinvested. It hasn't beaten Bitcoin, but that's not a traditional asset. It's beaten everything traditional. And here it is at all-time highs, completely ignored. And silver even more ignored. And the same old nonsense about silver being an industrial metal and it could slow down in a recession and this and that. The world has moved past that. This is not about a recession. This is not about any of that. This is about silver, I think, is being recognized by, I guess what I'm trying to say is that I think Russia and China and India have understood for a long time what we're doing. I try and show people that when I talk about the comment that came out of the Shanghai Grain Exchange, or the BRICS Grain Exchange, rather, where the gentleman who's behind it said, look, we produce more wheat than the West. We consume more, yet we don't control the price. That's controlled on COMEX. When this is finalized, the BRICS Grain Exchange, this will change that. Well, they know that same exact thing. It's the exact same thing that's happening and more relevant. It's like they're tipping their hat. because the exact same thing they know is happening with the precious metals, and they have been using that against us. I've been screaming about this forever. But I think they realize what we're doing, and they have been trying to beat us at this game. This is a financial war. This is not a hot war, and they're draining the system of everything. And I've talked about the base metals, how the LBM or how the Chinese own the LME. I've talked about the commodity contracts like wheat and soybean and corn. They built the grain exchange, and Brazil is now selling corn and soybeans to China instead of the United States doing it, and instead of Australia doing it. These were their main producers, and now they're not. This is a game that is moving in the other direction, while the people in this country have no patience, to your point, and they want immediate returns because instant gratification is not fast enough. But when we look at what gold has done, outpacing everything and hanging in there, and quietly, like the tortoise in the old kid story, the tortoise and the hare, and holy shit, there's the tortoise. How did he get here? Watch what happens when silver catches up. And today is a prime example of it. A 5 times the move of gold in one day. Well, what happens if it's that way for 1 week or 1 month or 1 year? And what does that look like? Gold has already gone up considerably, right? Considerably. It's doubled in, I don't know, not much more than a year, a couple of years anyway. But silver has a lot of room to go. And at an 85-to-1 ratio, that's 4 feet of snow in my backyard in Delray Beach, Florida, man, in July. It doesn't happen. And I got 2 snowmobiles back in Minnesota. I wouldn't call my sister and tell her to send them back here if it were, because I know it's an anomaly. And this anomaly has grown stronger and stronger and stronger, and it's pushing a beach ball deeper and deeper and deeper down at the bottom of the pool. And you're stepping on it, but if your foot slips, it's going to come up and hit you in the chin and knock you out. And that's how fast that this will move when it really moves. It'll blow people's mind. And I will go on record, and we'll have a conversation someday where you and I will wake up on a Monday morning, and you're going to call me at 5 in the morning or something and be like, Andy, holy shit. Yeah. Do you see the price of silver? And I'm going to say, no. And I'm going to look at the phone and I'm going to say, holy shit. That's how it's going to happen. They're going to let it go. And it's going to happen at a time that catches Wall Street and the American public off guard. And if you aren't positioned, you're dead in the water.